Good evening. My name is Aaron Carter, and today I will be presenting my project, my final project on Texas winters and the impact of changing weather patterns. And in order to best uh, see results in the context of the situation, I believe that through grassroots organizing and through community engagement, things of that nature, we can best benefit the society and people that live in it, especially in the Texas region. So to begin, environmental challenge that I stated is the winter storms in the Texas Gulf region. So severe winter storms in the Texas Gulf region, such as Winter Storm Uri, have caused unprecedented damage due to infrastructure that was and is underprepared and deregulated energy systems, as well as inadequate climate adaptation strategies. And here for a motive, personally, as someone from Michigan, when it was time for me to go to school, I decided that I wanted to escape and go somewhere that was warm as possible. And as soon as I got down here, I started to also notice that it seemed like the winter and the bad weather followed me. And that was shocking to me, one, because I came here for great weather year round, but also because I know that Texas usually doesn't have weather that's negative like this. So I'm really curious to figure out exactly what's going on and how we can best solve that. So for the political and economic causes of the winter storm impact, Texas government, so for the political causes, the Texas government policies that are in place, which are often led largely by conservative ideologies, resist federal climate regulations and the transition to renewable energy, which helps contribute to a lack of climate underpreparedness. Um, Economic causes, deregulated energy markets, and prioritizing profit over long-term safety have led to the underinvestment in infrastructure and need to handle extreme weather, such as weatherizing powering plants and ensuring energy reliability during storms. So here, simply put, a lot of times companies will lobby in front of the government, and they'll do things of that nature in order to boost their business. And politicians, although they should be most concerned about their constituents and their constituents' well-being, oftentimes they do favor big business, which leads us to instances and situations like this. Um, like I said, Texas, it runs on an isolated, deregulated energy grid, which means it's not connected to the national grid, and there's like little government oversight, which again contributes to the issues that I listed. Um, these decisions, like I said, prioritize profit over public safety, and the infrastructure hasn't kept up with the reality of the climate change that has come to the state. Something that often confuses me is that, okay, I could see if this instance happened like once or twice, but it's continually happening. And it seems like they just go with it. And it's negatively affecting the citizens of this state, which I think is specifically important to highlight. So environmental protection versus economic development. Okay, so the Texas Gulf region, winter storms often expose a deeper conflict between economic growth and environmental protection. The state's energy sector is driven by a desire to prioritize profit, not people. Like I said, big business lobbying and oftentimes getting the government officials to bend to their will at the benefit of financial gain as opposed to the collective interests of their constituents. Um, Also at the expense of public safety and climate resilience. Deregulation and underinvestment in infrastructure and resistance to clean energy continues to make storms more devastating. And specifically, when I mentioned the resistance to clean energy, like I said, this state is led oftentimes by government officials who are Republican. And Republican ideology, a lot of times, they're very against clean energy because they feel like government is overstepping and harming jobs. But it's important to note that we can change the way that we do business when it comes to the environment and still, protect workers and still ensure that we're living in a state that will be prepared for instances like this because, like I said, they keep happening. Sustainable and equitable development means preparing for climate disasters while also supporting the economy. And, instead of just choosing one or the other, Texas can invest green infrastructure, modernize the grid, and protect vulnerable communities. This issue highlights the interconnectedness of justice, the environment, and the economy. Um, and just to add a little more, you can't talk about economic growth in Texas without addressing environmental inequality. It's impossible. Winter storms do not affect everyone equally. Black, brown, and low-income communities are hit the hardest, which is why me personally, I think that it's really important to spread this message, and to, press the government officials that the people have spoken and they elected these officials. So I think that it's their turn and their job to, ensure that not the constituents that just look like them and not the constituents that have a lot of money, but everyone is equally protected here in this state. Um, is important. I just think that this is something that oftentimes is overlooked. And a lot of times, the marginalized communities that are often most affected the most, they don't have the wherewithal or the resources to fight back against stuff like this, which is why I think that it's important that we continue to shine a light on issues like this. And to wrap this, I believe that real development means resilience, equity, and justice. So to introduce my project, Building Resilience in Texas Communities, my project aims to encourage climate resilient communities in Texas through grassroots environmental education, sustainable infrastructure, and community empowerment. So judging from what I already knew and this class, as much as they like to say top-down approaches work best, people on the ground are saying that they don't. And I believe that working together on the ground can help us solve this issue as opposed to waiting and stepping back and waiting for government to intervene and fix it when they clearly have not and are not really showing too many signs at trying to make a big change. This project will focus on preparing residents for severe winter storms and advocating for political change regarding energy policy and climate action. The goal here is to reduce harm for future storms while also pressuring leaders to fix failing systems. And the project centers people most affected, giving them the tools and the protection to help advocate for themselves. So here are the goals and values of my project. The overall goals is to build community resilience, educate on sustainable practices, and create infrastructure that mitigates storm damage. And the core values of this project is community empowerment, environmental justice, and equitable access to climate adaptation resources. Also, I think it's really important to launch youth advocacy teams and to push for infrastructure reforms and renewable energy, and specifically youth advocacy teams. Now, everybody that is involved, whether you want to be involved or not, because you're affected regardless. It can range from young to mid-age to old, but I think it's important to pour into the youth because we, and they, even people before me, or after me, I should say, are the future. So I feel like if we start to express the importance of this now, then collectively as we move forward, we can start to see changes and changes in the way that people think, and not be so stuck in the past. So strategies, steps, and the organizational structure of my plan. So specific strategies include to conduct community climate workshops to educate about winter storm preparedness. So a lot of times people are upset that other people aren't pulling their weight, but you can't assume that everyone is on the same playing field as you. It's important to step back and say, okay, well, let's assume that everybody is on square zero and let's help them get where I am. So I think that the community climate workshops will help best get us there. I want to establish rain gardens and other green infrastructures to combat flooding. And specifically with the rain gardens, I think it's important because oftentimes when these storms come, people experience a lot of damage. Their homes are flooded, things of that nature, and creating the rain gardens will, help mitigate some of that, some of the harm that's done there. And also, like I said previously, launch a youth-led climate advocacy task force. So again, I think that it's really important that we put things like this in the hands of the youth. I remember being younger and people would tell me this all the time. They would be like, you are the future. So we want to make sure you're set. We want to make sure you're prepared. We want to make sure that how best you can change the world, honestly. And even with me being 22 years old, I have young relatives, young, friends that have little cousins, little brothers, little sisters, and I try not to be too, in instances where we're just relaxed and chilling and hanging out. I try not to be too educational, but I think that those are important opportunities to get my point across. And the steps of my project include conducting a community needs assessment. So it's easy to just say, okay, let's do this for this community and this for this community. But I think we need to go door to door, surveys, things of that nature to see exactly what's needed in specific communities so we can help serve them best. Also, organizing workshops with local institutions. I think that's important to help spread the message throughout the community and also building a task force for political advocacy and policy change. So, like I said before, it's important to advocate politically because whether we like it or not, the leaders that we have are the ones that are setting the rules. And, sometimes we feel like they sit back and aren't doing anything. And that's the whole point of a grassroots movement. We can't just sit back and wait for, government intervention. I think that time is now. And I think that it's in our hands. And the organizational structure of my project will be an advisory board, which will be like, the scholars and, mature folks who know a little bit about exactly the message that I'm trying to spread. Local chapters, like I said, to help spread the message across the state, honestly. So it's not just so, focused on one specific area. Youth council, and I've already expressed the importance of that, and then logistics and operations team, because like I said, you see, there's one, two, three, four different teams here. And I think movements work best when everybody is focused on a specific thing, and then they can collectively come together and say, okay, well, we did this, let's bridge the gap here and there. And I think that that's important. And the logistics and operations team will help everything run smoothly. And for my funding sources, environmental grants, government funding, and donations from local businesses and foundations will best help fund my project. So to compare my project to Dr. Matai's approach, there are some similarities, and I also believe that there are some differences here. So to begin with the similarities, we both have a deep focus on grassroots empowerment and community action. And as I've said before, before I took this course, I wasn't really that focused on grassroots empowerment or community action. But this class did change my way of thinking. And when I read Dr. Maitai's book and watched her videos, I learned that grassroots movements really do work and engage in the community and helping the community see the importance of the goal and explaining to them how there is power in numbers. I think that that's important, and I think that it can help benefit my project. Also, a promotion of environmental education, especially to the youth. As I've said before, they are the future, and you can't assume everybody is on the same playing field. So that's why I believe it's important to help spread the education related to this specific instance. And finally, encouragement of collective action to address climate issues. It's easy to just feel like, oh, okay, I'll do this on my own. Like I don't want to be involved with anybody else. And I was like that for a while. But this class and life experiences have helped me learn that collective action is the best type of action. And some key differences here is Dr. Maitai focused on reforestation in Kenya, while personally I'm focusing on winter preparedness and infrastructure in Texas. Also, my project's emphasis on energy policy reform and local resilience, they differ from Maitai's emphasis on environmental activism in the context of deforestation. Unlike hers, this project also focuses on infrastructure policy and disaster preparation, adapted to Texas context. So next, to compare my project to Norberg Hodges' approach, for similarities, both projects emphasize local solutions, community empowerment, and resilience in the face of environmental threats, and also the importance of local knowledge and collective action as a way to challenge top-down policies and encourage change. Some key differences here, though, are Norberg Hodges' work focuses on the impacts of globalization and the promotion of local economies, I am focused on addressing climate-related infrastructure issues and energy policy reform. Norberg Hodges' approach also advocates for economic localization, and I am pushing for localism and external policy change to address climate issues. So for the strengths and potential limitations of my project, community-driven approach or having a community-driven approach ensures sustainability and long-term success. So like I said, top-down approaches oftentimes will fizzle out because the people that we elect, once they're in those positions, they do however they move however they want to move, and they don't really consider their constituents. But making sure it's ground up will help promote long-term success. Next, combining both education and advocacy and addressing both immediate and systemic issues. This is a strong strength to my project, I believe. Education and advocacy, both connected with immediate systemic issues, will help ensure that the goals of my project see the light of day. And focus on youth involvement, which empowers the next generation of environmental advocates. And some potential limitations include potential resistance from political leaders and energy companies, naturally, reliance on funding which may be inconsistent or difficult to secure, and challenges in scaling the project to reach wider areas of Texas without significant support. So to conclude, this project, to me, is crucial in addressing Texas's winter storms crisis and broader climate challenge. Focusing on sustainable development, equitable access to climate adaptation resources, and political advocacy helps this project build resilient communities. The efforts above align with environmentally sustainable practices and will help ensure that both Texas and its residents are better prepared for future climate events. And bottom line, we need grassroots-driven, climate-resilient community solutions supported by infrastructure reform, energy reform, education, and political advocacy to protect the people of the great state of Texas and build a sustainable future. And to wrap, this is my bibliography, my 3 sources. Thank you for watching my presentation.